Dr. Erika Copeland gets it done. She is a mother of five with a career that spans public health, clinical research, and several years as an entrepreneur. She completed her doctorate while she was a busy mom, wife, and full-time employee, by the way. She rose up the ranks in her first clinical research position from research assistant to research director and started her own clinical research business in her early 30s. During this episode of the Age Has No Limit podcast, you'll learn how society's expectations impacted some of her decisions and how her last executive position felt like she was losing herself. You'll also learn how her father, who was a paraplegic, and her mother, who worked in healthcare, inspired her career choices. How African Americans' long-held mistrust of the medical system inspired her decision to start a clinical research business in her 30s. And you'll also learn a little bit about Erika, the woman. You'll enjoy this episode of the Age Has No Limit podcast. If you're watching the video podcast, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications. Listening from your favorite streaming platform, please subscribe for more amazing stories of people just like Dr. Erika Copeland that show us that age has no limit. Stick around to learn more about Dr. Erika Copeland. It's the Age Has No Limit podcast. We're here to show and prove that your age shouldn't prevent you from designing and living the life you want. I'm your host, Patrice Davis. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Age Has No Limit podcast. Today, I'm joined by Erika Copeland, and I am so happy to have Erika with us. And just like several of the other conversations that I've recorded, I'm going to be recording this with a very, very good friend. So you're going to see us, just kind of, really enjoying the self, and all the smiles you see are natural and authentic because we've been good friends for about 20 years or more. Yeah. 20 years. So I'm surrounded by good people, right? So, so I would love for you, Erika, to tell us a little bit about where you're from.
I am from Atlanta. Well, I'm from Tallahassee, Florida originally, but I grew up here in Atlanta, basically in the Stone Mountain area. Went to high school in Decatur, and then graduated from a high school in Stone Mountain, and then went away for college and have come back and have settled here and grew my family here as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Erika, I did not know that Erika was, I didn't know you actually were raised here. I thought it was all Florida until college. Okay.
Yeah, I moved here, my family moved here when I was in 5th grade. So I finished elementary, in Florida, elementary ended at 5th grade. When you move to Georgia, elementary keeps going. So I actually had to start back and keep going through elementary, I think it's 7th grade, and then you go to high school, middle school. So yeah, I came here, graduated, went to Columbia High School in Decatur, and then transitioned 11th grade and graduated from Redan High in Stone Mountain.
Interesting.
It was Redan then. My kids say it's Redan now.
Yes. Redan. I think I know it as, Redan. Yes. And so I believe you're an only child, correct?
I am.
Yes. Okay. So what was that like? How do you think that formed your life or formed your decisions or informed your decisions?
It was, it was challenging. When you're an only child, that's all you know. I had a host of cousins that I grew up with, when I was younger. But it was me, my mom, and my dad, you know what I mean? So I was always a third. I saw a comedian the other day talking about only children, saying that we really are a third wheel to a couple, basically. And that's kind of how it was. But it was fine, I was doted on by my grandmother, who I love dearly, who's passed on. And my mom and I are best friends and had been for a very long time. It's now transitioning now to a different type of relationship. But it was great. I enjoyed it. It made me very headstrong. I'm a Leo woman, so I'm already, pretty headstrong and driven. And so being an only child allowed me to just kind of foster that personality a lot more. Okay.
Now, what did you do early in your career?
Earlier in my career, I started out in clinical research and clinical trials. I had aspirations to go to medical school. And so once I graduated from college, I did clinical research and clinical trials as my research sector to enter into medical school. And so that was the idea. So I did that for the first part of my career for maybe 10, 15 years. I started out as a research assistant, learning patient recruitment, subject recruitment, and filling out data collection, data analysis forms, and things of that nature. And with that same company, I actually grew and progressed through the ranks and became the director of that center by the time it was all kind of said and done. And then after they closed down, I actually started my own company in clinical research and clinical trials.
And you started your own business?
Yes. I started my own company, Clinical Research Center of Atlanta is what it was. And the focus for that was, the reason for that was that, as I said, a number of African Americans take a lot of the medications that are out there, but there weren't a lot of us participating in clinical trials. And a lot of that stems from, a number of, reasons, mistrust of the government, Tuskegee, experiments and things of that nature. And so my thought process was that, meeting with and bringing on African American physicians, you know what I mean? And so therefore we started a company where, we would help those physicians, teach them about clinical trials and clinical research, and then help them to recruit patients, teach them about, medical record review and things of that nature. And then, help them to recruit, help them to manage, and help them to run, and then post everything from pre-launch to post-launch activities.
That's interesting. I never thought about that, nor did I know any of the details about your work. So this is my homegirl. We've been hanging out for 20 something years, and it's during these conversations that I learned so much about, just learn much more about the people that I'm working with, or that are participating in the podcast. Now, I had never known that you were actually going out and meeting with, the doctors and some of the other things. So you also led a global project team. You've managed clinical projects, had your own business, and you were the director of corporate strategy for a government contractor. Of all the positions you've held, which one do you think you enjoyed the most, and why?
So I've enjoyed each of them really, but for different reasons, right? So for clinical trials and clinical research, I enjoyed that because that was working with individuals who had some type of chronic disease, some type of disorder, and helping them along with their families to understand the purpose of clinical trials and the importance of them, right? So we have this stigma in the African American community around clinical trials, but realistically, we need them, right? We need them in order to find new medications and new ways to use those medications. So that for me was important because it helped with the education of the families. It helps with the education to the patient as well as to the physicians and staff. So a lot of times in our community didn't really know much about them either, right? So that was an important effort for me in terms of education. I enjoyed working in as the director of corporate strategy, growth, and operations. I love that because I love public health, right? And so we mentioned earlier that I'm an only child. My dad was a paraplegic, meaning that he was paralyzed from the waist down, and my mom worked in the hospital for over 30 years. So I have been around health and medicine for all of my life, and so those parts of public health, looking at the individual versus the community versus the society versus the whole world, each element I took to each one of those positions. So in the corporate strategy, growth, and operations, that I wore more of a public health hat, where I was able to do, more research and more as a research scientist and studying a lot of disorders and diseases and things of that nature. And with that position, I worked directly with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which is CDC, with the Department of Defense or DoD, and NIH as well. And so that has some really, really important research aspects that are just near and dear to my heart. So yeah.
And it's interesting that you mentioned how much your dad being a paraplegic and your mom being in the healthcare space, and how much that actually influenced, number one, your career choice, and the fact that you enjoy your career choice, which is sort of the, I would call it in sort of like an underflow of public health in almost all of them.
Yeah.
However, tell us, how much of what you did in your early career, and I think I know the answer, but would love for you to provide some more insight, was driven by your own interest, and what was based on what others expected.
Oh, that's hard.
That's always such a question.
You know that just. I mean, I, was born in the 70s, and the idea is go to school, you get a good job with good benefits, and you stay there. Like I said, my mom was there at her position in her role for over 30 years at Emory University, and it was just expected. I didn't think about whether I was going to college. I went to college. I didn't think about whether I was going back to, get, additional degrees. I went back and got additional degrees. I didn't do medical school, but I got a doctorate. You know what I mean? And so my parents were, my dad specifically was very tough, very, very tough. I was always trying to make the right decisions, make him proud. My mom was my number one fan, so I don't really care what I did. She was just like, that's my baby, So I think that growing up in an environment where you're just expected to do more and be more led me to the decisions that I made. I didn't really have a lot of individuals around me who, were extremely wealthy. We were middle class, I wasn't the first one to graduate from college, but one of the first of, my parents didn't graduate. They went, but they did that infamous 2 years. And so it was, for me, it was just like, that's just what it's expected in order to live a full and a fulfilling life, for the most part.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that it was expected and therefore you did it. And I think a lot of people from our generation, that's what we did. It was expected. It wasn't, we quite frankly, we didn't have as many choices.
Right.
And so that's something we also have to understand. And so that's interesting. You said that. So tell us why you decided to resign from your last position.
I resigned. I had resigned once, and I was enticed to stay on. And it lasted for maybe about 6 months. And it just wasn't the right, I don't know whether it wasn't the right role or it wasn't the right time for me to be in that role, right? I felt like I was losing myself in that position, only because, it happened. I took the position on during the pandemic. I think I started there in like April of 2020. And so it was remote. The rest of the team, everyone was remote, soon after. And at the same time, we experienced a major flood in my home. And so our entire downstairs was pulled apart. Like down to the cement, no kitchen, nothing. So you have we have 5 children, and 4 of them were still at home at that time. One went ahead and moved out on his own, and he was just like, okay, I think now is the time for me to, part ways. And so we have 6 of us in the home. So my mom now lives with us as well. All of us living upstairs in our house during the pandemic. No downstairs. And my children are now in 11th and 12th, 10th and 11th grade, and going to school remotely. We're all pinned upstairs. And I'm held up in my home office working from sun up to sundown. And I honestly feel like I missed most of the pandemic from a personal perspective. I experienced it because I was the director of strategy, growth, and operations. I felt it hard with my public health hat on, but not as a mom, as a daughter, as a wife. My husband was essential worker, so he was in and out. My mom and son were immunocompromised. My son has asthma. My mom's just older, and it was just too much. It was too much. I felt like everything that I was doing, I was losing myself. The days were a blur. And I felt like at that point, it was just not a good role or match for me at that particular time in my life.
What would you say was the final straw?
Um,
I like that question.
I loved my CEO dearly.
Mm-hmm.
She was great, very smart woman, very driven. We were both the same sun sign, so we were alike. However, she's CEO, so I yield
Mm-hmm.
where I need to yield. I bob and weave where I need to bob and weave.
I like that.
um, but it was just when, like I said, the days were a blur. I wasn't able to spend time with my family. And I was just tired.
Mm-hmm.
I was tired. I was exhausted. And when I became mentally fatigued to where I didn't feel like I was giving the position justice, and it wasn't giving me what I needed, then it was time for me to go at that point where I was no longer excited to wake up in the morning and see my team. I led the corporate team and I led teams in the field. And then I was also on contracts as well. I was writing proposals day in and day out. I was managing, budgets and doing the invoice and writing up invoices. And so, I mean, I wore every hat in that company that I could wear outside of CEO. And it just became too much, more than what I felt like doing. It was no longer making me happy or giving me joy. And at that point, I decided to leave.
Now, let's talk about your title again. So it was director of those
Corporate,
three things?
Corporate strategy,
growth,
and operations.
And operations. Now think about all of that. That's typically 2 to 3 positions.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
That answers that question.
Yeah.
That was really that's the answer to the question when I said, what was your last straw? That's the answer. That was the answer to the question.
I mean, because it was developing strategies, meeting with clients, and it's government contracting. So a lot of it is getting business. I mean, that's how the company grows. You have to go out and get business. It was managing the teams, internal and external teams. It was watching the way that the business grew and then watching the way that it operated, making sure that everything, all the balls stayed in the air. And it was just 10 years ago, 15 maybe, all day, Not today.
Not today. 3 positions.
Not today.
Okay. And one of the things I do want to kind of catch back on briefly is, so I remember when you explained to our group, our group of friends, that you had this experience with your downstairs, with your kitchen and the flood. And I think what I am thinking about is how important it is sometimes for us to really listen to our friends, because I did not realize, nor did I actually think about, what does this look like for your daily life when your entire downstairs is inoperable, right? And everybody is living upstairs, whether it was just you and your husband having to sit upstairs, right? Or you and your 4 or 5 children being upstairs, and then working in the middle of all that. That is a lot. So for those of us, let's do a better job. This is a personal commitment of mine, but I really would like for us to do a better job of understanding where our friends are coming from, so that we understand some of the challenges they may be dealing with, even if it's just to be a listening ear.
Right.
So thanks for noting that, because I did not think about how that would be impacting your life.
It was almost 9 months of our lives where we had to order out for every single meal. Like my kids loved it. I mean, but I mean, you still have the insurance element. You have all of those things, to deal with. My mom included, and just trying to make sure everyone is comfortable and still live. I mean, it would have been fine for us to, insurance would have paid for another house, but where are you going to take 6 people? You know what I mean? And into another space. But yeah, that's absolutely true. And making sure that we're checking in on each other and just checking to make sure that each other is okay.
Okay. Now tell me about your first dive into entrepreneurship.
Well, my first dive was the first company that I opened, which was CRCA, and shortly thereafter was CRISA that I had as well. Both of them were clinical trials, clinical research, site management organizations, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved going out and speaking with the physicians and meeting with patients, doing medical record reviews and things of that nature, and just really teaching. I think I really liked the educational component of all of that, and then understanding how important it was. It was innate for me to work with them, to teach them, to to show them just how important this was. And then to also teach the physicians about another stream of income. They didn't understand how lucrative working in clinical trials and clinical research could be, because as a principal investigator, they are in charge. They already have the patient population, and they're giving them the medications anyway. So why not be on the beginning end of it to help to make sure that those medications are well suited for their patient population as well. So that was my first introduction to it, and it went very well. I stopped only because I was pregnant with our second daughter, and I was so sick. And as the product, the person that's going out and doing the work, doing the recruiting and doing that, I wasn't able to continue that. So I had some staff on, and we were able to kind of close out the trials that we had. But once I had our daughter, it was time to just make some money. I had been out for a while. And so my husband and I made the decision for me to enter back into the workforce, which, now I think, he's just like, oh, you should have stayed in. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Everything happens for a reason. And so, yeah. So now I'm trying my hand at it again. Not trying, I am doing it again.
Yes, yes. So that was something that was actually a discussion that we had before we started recording, that she is indeed going back into the space. And tell me what was it that triggered that decision? What made you say, you know what, I need to take a look at this again?
Well, I mean, since I left my last position, I have been in doing real estate investing. And I started that not for myself. It was really my husband and our second son who had started, we're going to do real estate, just because, you hear that the top 1% of, wealth earners are in real estate, but it's not that they do real estate, it's that they invest in real estate. And so I think my husband and my son, they understood that. And so they were going to these seminars and things like that. And so to get well abreast and knowledgeable about the topic area. And I was supposed to be the administrative because I know growth strategy and operations. I'm very, very detail oriented and organized. And so my role was really to be their support system. So that didn't happen. That changed. My husband is still in it, and we did it for a while, and then he's working, and so his hours were just not. He didn't have as many hours to put into it as I did, and so I'm just like, go on, and you continue to work, and you'll do it part time, and I was in it full time, and so I work with a partner of mine. She's out of Mobile, Alabama, and she and I are on the phone day in and day out doing real estate investing, which is we purchases homes for buy and hold, meaning you buy them and you hold them. You may resell them or refinance and resell them later on down the line. Would love to do some fix and flips in the future, and then wholesaling as well. So, but we do that on a daily basis. But as we were doing that, just because I'm still in the industry, I still have colleagues that call me for consulting. I still write proposals here and there for special clients. And then, just it's still there. It's still in my heart. It's still a part of me because that health element hasn't gone away. And so here recent, just, watching social media just opens the world up for you to see everything that's going on, in the world. And so I have had 3 former colleagues contact me to say, hey, we should start something. And the first one that called, I was just like, no, absolutely not. I don't want to, because I was just so drained, just so mentally fatigued from the pandemic, all of it. And I needed a sabbatical is what I needed from the whole thing. And the second one came, and she actually had a plan. And I was just like, send it to me, I'll take a look. And then the third is just like, this is what's going on. These are young women who are in the same space you were in before. They're doing the same things you were doing before, and look at just all of this activity. Because when I did it, there was no competition. There was no one doing it. My competition when I got ready to come back after I had my daughter was a large pharma, large CRO, which clinical research organization, who was here locally that I actually ended up working for.
The
for
one
some
up
time.
70,
Yeah, up 70.
yeah,
Yes, that one.
yeah.
I actually went and worked for them, but
Mm-hmm.
no one was working with the mom and pop operations,
Mm-hmm.
the mom and pop small private practices. No one was there. But by the time I had my daughter and got ready to come back, they were.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I was just like looking at it as a mountain, like, oh, I can't compete with that, which was I decided to go back, fear, forced me back into the workplace. But now it's just kind of, I at that point knew how to run clinical trials and clinical research. I didn't know how to run a business.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, I went back and got an MBA,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm just like, oh, okay, I can do that now, and now knowing all that I know and feeling like it's still there. I have the knowledge. I want to use that and monetize it, and just teach others and teach a new generation of research professionals, that this is a business that we can be a part of, because there are not a lot of us or enough of us in the industry.
Okay, bigger vision then. Bigger vision,
yeah.
just like there was a bigger vision when you first did it. You wanted to make sure, number one, like you said, the Black community, we are the ones that are taking, everyone, all communities are, of course, taking medications. Our population had, I guess, certain chronic diseases that are very prominent, or in our communities, and just understanding their contribution by participating in the clinical trials. So that was a part of the education process, if I understand that correctly.
Yes.
And which is interesting, because I've always been very, very suspicious of clinical trials.
Yeah, we all are. Which is also a part of why I left clinical research and went into public health, because I just had ethical concerns, about just why. Why?
Yeah.
Everyone hears the commercials, and then you hear this at the end of it with all of these side effects and all of these things, but those things exist. You know what I mean? And so it's the clinical significance of it all, as to whether, it works for you or it doesn't, whether you need westernized medicine or whether you need holistic. Everything works differently for everyone. And so having us, with our DNA being different, now that we saw, throughout the pandemic, just things work differently on everybody's bodies, from race to individual to, to whatever. And so I think that all of it is just knowledge, education, and doing what's right for the individual and for the community and population at hand. And I love being a part of that as well.
So very, very big change, shifting from the work that you have done to moving into real estate investment. What was the feedback like from family and friends when you shared that, hey, I'm going to make this big change from this position with a very nice salary, right? A very, very nice, juicy salary. So what was the feedback from family and friends?
It was positive for the most part. My family, my husband and children they know that I always get things done. So they had no qualms. They were just like, oh, you're leaving? Okay. They were just like, what do you do? Really? Them, along with my friends, I was just like, what do you do anyway? So they were very supportive. My husband, especially, he's always been my rock. Just, what are we doing today? And he's right there next to me. So they were fine with it. They know that I would make it happen. I would make it work. They just wanted me to be happy at the end of the day. My friends were very supportive. A number of them have become entrepreneurs themselves. So it was really just kind of an exchange of just kind of how to make it work and how to make the transition. But it's hard as an entrepreneur, because you actually work harder, or you use more brain power 9 times out of 10 than working a 9 to 5, because you have to be in charge of your vision, your growth, your operation, your mission, all your employees, HR. You wear all the hats, and so that can be a lot more trying than any 9 to 5 that you go in where it's scripted for you. You're not being as creative as you can be in some industries. It just depends on kind of which industry you're in. I received the most flack from my mom. from my mom. And to her defense, like I said, she was on her job for over 30 years. And for her, she just could not understand. And still,
Still
to today,
I didn't know that.
cannot understand who just leaves their job just to start doing so. And what are you doing all day up there on the phone? I mean, she is just so comical. And, but for her, she's spoiled. I spoiled my mom. And she'll tell it. She has no problem saying, well, you spoiled me. And I'm just used to having this and having that. And there is a growth curve, as an entrepreneur, as you're getting things settled and setting up shop and making sure that, things are functioning the way that, your family sometimes has become accustomed to. But she's really the only one. And she's supportive. She just doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
It's not her time. It's not her era. And times are changing, and they'll continue to change even as I now watch my children, go off into their lives. We have 3 that have already graduated from college, and our last 2 are in college now, a freshman and sophomore, our proud HBCU attendees and grads. Even watching them make decisions about what career paths they'll take. I have to switch and be supportive of them, being supportive of me, because I'm just looking to say which one is going to say they don't want to continue with college, which one's going to, to say it. But, as we did, I expected it of them, because if you don't do anything else, figure it out, you know what I mean? So, so yeah, it's been a transition, and it'll continue to be a transition until until we're no longer on this earth and in this plane.
So my next question is about mindset shifts, but I feel like you've had a number already. You've had several of them. So when you first started your career, learned everything almost from the ground up in clinical research, then started your own business. That took a lot of gumption, probably early in your career, right? You were probably in your 20s, let's say, going out talking about she going to She did it though. She had her own business, going out talking to doctors in her 20s and doing well, and only pulled back when you were having your second daughter, right? And then, made a couple of, changes, and not necessarily career changes, but, found out what your expertise where it would be beneficial. And then decided, let me make another pivot. Try this real estate investment thing. Tell me about the mindset shifts, the most recent mindset shift from your career to real estate investment, and just some thoughts about that.
So I have my dad gave me the book As a Man Thinketh when I was, I don't know, 5, 6.
Wow,
I still have the version because in the margins, I have my definitions where I would write out what the words meant, because I was just that young when he gave it to me. But it has taken on a completely different connotation for me at this day and age. We have always taught our children, I mean, several of them have tattoos with As a Man Thinketh on, in their bodies somewhere in some place, because we've thought that way, right? As a man. But now, older, wiser, it's now understanding that no, I am her. Like, it is what I say it is. And now I realize that everything, and watching, the gurus of society, and mental strategy and manifestation, and understanding that everything in my environment is me pushed out, right? Understanding that my thoughts, my beliefs, the way that I think, the way that I function has everything around me situated in a reflection of that. I just listened to a speaker the other day, Bashir, and he was saying how when you smile in the mirror, smiling right back at you, right? But if you're expecting something different, when you look out, it's not going to happen. Because it's a reflection of yourself as you go and you operate from day to day to day. Right. So my mindset now is understanding that it happens when I say it happens. It happens how I make it happen. I am who I want to be.
Yeah.
If I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be an entrepreneur. No, I am an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That's what I am.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so that has been the strongest mind shift for me and my partner. And I talk about that almost as much as we talk about real estate on a on a daily basis, as we're kind of keeping each other in check and understanding that this world we live in is what we make it.
Yeah,
We make it. And so that's probably been the biggest thing and the most influential and the most impactful that I've been able to learn and live now, live in this journey.
Yeah, that's a great point. As a Man Thinketh. Haven't read it yet.
Oh,
but I need to go.
Yeah.
Looks like I need to definitely add it to my library.
Sure.
It's one of the many
very
books.
Small book, takes you, it's small but mighty.
That's good.
Very small but mighty.
That's
interesting. You know what I mean? Because it shows you just, it's belief. You know, we've talked about that a bit, and just, I sent something out to our friend group. I don't know whether it was a video or a meme or something, and I'm just like, this will kind of help, because a couple of them have asked, how do you stay positive, and how do you always? Because I'm always saying, make it happen. You make it happen. And I sent it out. And I said, this will help with mindset and believing in yourself. And you said, oh, I was there last year. I got I just had to chuckle. I said that would be Patricia.
Oh, okay.
But you were just like, I learned to believe in myself. You've come to a point where I know that I'm in charge of it all. You know what I mean? And if you don't believe in yourself, or you believe that you don't get it, and I can't do it, and and that pity party, you live in that.
Absolutely. And I want to clarify that when she says believing in yourself, she means going beyond confidence and going beyond self-esteem. It's understanding that you truly are, I'm going to say, in control to a certain, right? So and as a man thinketh, right? Really just kind of let that sit there and saute for a little bit. It's, what you think is what you are, and the surroundings, and a lot of things that are in our lives are a result of what's happening in our minds.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I'm so glad that you brought that up. So tell me what you think an age has no limit life looks like to you.
It's a life that I live, work, breathe, play on my own terms. On my own terms. I still, on a day-to-day basis, we have a schedule. Even, we're entrepreneurs, but we have a schedule. We're on the phone at a certain time. We're off the phone at a certain time. We're available, on the weekends and things like that. There's no weekend. We often, kid each other. We're just like, we have 6 Saturdays and a Sunday. You know what I mean? Because it should all be happy times, because you're working for yourself. I'm no longer making millions of dollars for my company. I'm making those things for myself, that money for myself. And so now my husband and I are, we can travel whenever we want. We're recent empty nesters, just a couple of months, so still getting used to this house with 3 people in it now. But it's making decisions to do what I want to do. And so, as I was saying, we schedule time on, but it still is challenging for me to say, I'm going to take a day off. Can I say that? I'm not gonna work today. I'm gonna take I can do that. You know what I mean? Without having to put in a leave form or make sure everybody's where they need to be.
Do I have the 8 hour? Oh, 6.5.
Right. Well, for me, it was, I would have so much leave time because I could never take time off.
Yes.
As a director, and been in leadership for many, many years. I was always one of those ones that was at risk of losing time. When it rolls over at the end of the year, it's just like, take time off or you're going to lose it. But thankfully, in public health and government contracting, we have proposal season. So we would get a good 2 weeks off at Christmas, or, some really good leave time. But it's living it on my terms, where I can make decisions for myself. I can do what I want to do. And at the end of the day, I can be happy and have joy in my life and spend time with my husband and my kids and my family and my mom when I want to.
Yeah, I love that. I really, that is also something that is top of mind and a top priority for me. So do you have a bucket list?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't have a bucket list because, I hadn't had the time to sit and think about what I wanted to do. Our oldest daughter asked me some months ago, she was just like, Mom, if you didn't have to do, all the things that you've done over life and, didn't have grandpa, that was sick and mom and what would you have done? And, I tell you, to be honest, I told her, I said, sweetheart, I always did. And I've said this to you guys, to my friend, my sister circle as well. It's just like, I've always done what I needed to do and what I had to do. So I never really had time or took the time to think about what I wanted to do. And now I have time to do that. Right. And so some of the things on my bucket list are now to travel. We've been raising kids for 30 years and we are, we're adulting now. Yeah. We're no longer raising them, we're adulting. So now we have time to travel. I miss that. We would see our friends traveling and on Facebook doing this and here. And I'm just like, oh, wow, wow. Okay. So now we're getting to do some of those things and start going out and doing things in this beautiful city of Atlanta. Again, also to learn some languages.
Right? Oh, interesting. Yeah, which one? Or which ones?
Ones. Okay. Spanish will be first, of course, because, I've already had years and years of that. And so becoming fluent in Spanish. I also want to learn ASL, sign language. That's important to me. I don't know why. It just really is. I had a project that we provided ASL for the task force during the pandemic. And so that was just like, I want to do that as well. And then also to improve my game of chess. My dad was a master chess player.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah. And he's no longer here, but my husband and I, those are some of the things that we'll share and do together, we always said when our kids were younger, we wanted to have days where we would only speak a certain language in the house, Spanish, French, and various other Italian languages. We didn't get to do that, but we will do it with each other as well. So that'll be something fun that we can do that. And then playing chess as well.
I like that. I like that. So it sounds like you guys are figuring out the empty nest. I wouldn't say figuring it out. You're figuring out how to settle into it.
Yes.
So that's excellent. So so you did actually share a couple of things on your bucket list. So, I really do appreciate you sharing that with us and of course with the listeners.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for taking the time out to come and share a little bit more about your life. I actually learned quite a few things that I'd never known about you. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about having guests tell us a little bit more about their lives, about their experiences, about their decisions, and also what an age has no limit life looks like for them. So again, thanks to Dr. Erika Copeland. We forgot to talk about that. You got your PhD. I forgot we didn't get to talk about Dr. Erika Copeland. I remember when she was, working on her PhD and just really, really proud of everything that you've done. She successfully raised 5 children. And again, she is also the epitome of what an age has no limit life looks like. Thank you so much, Erika. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. Please show your appreciation by subscribing. If you subscribe, you'll be notified for the next episode where I'll share my work from anywhere experiences in Portugal, Spain, Jamaica, Mexico, and a few other countries. I look forward to sharing those experiences and the experiences of the other amazing guests who'll share how they redesigned their lives to live on their own terms. Remember, age has no limit. Until the next episode.